Hi everybody, this is Sarah and I'm back with another tutorial. The first tutorial I did was a 3-part series on how to build an 8-step sequencer, and that seemed to go off with pretty good success. I've had a number of people build them successfully after watching or during watching, and so I feel pretty good about that. This is one of those circuits where if you know what a step sequencer is, you're like, I'd really like to build one of those, but I don't know how. So anyway, so this is going to be a 32-step sequencer. It's a big project. You're going to need, well, you're going to need a lot of stuff. You're going to need a total of 5 breadboards. Okay, but before we jump too far into that, we're going to talk about what's on the main board here. This is our pretty much our digital board, you could say. So we've got a 555 timer here, 4017, 4017, 4017, 4017, and this one is a 4081, CD4081, and a 555 timer. In order to cascade the 4 4017s, we're going to need 3 AND gates, and the 4081 is a quad AND gate. So we'll use 3 of the 4. At this time, I would recommend that you take a screenshot of this and place your components as they are here on the board. Now what I've got here is I've got a couple of LEDs. All right, as you can see, there's a long lead and there's a short lead. The long lead on this one goes plugged into the orange lead, which goes to positive. The other shorter lead is negative, and that goes to a 1K resistor, which goes to negative line. Similarly, this is another LED, long lead to the left. Okay, and the short lead goes to the 1K, which goes to the ground. Okay. So I think that's a good place to start. Plug all your parts in and get them situated in this manner. And I'm going to go on to how to build the, what do you call these? The control boards, or the, what's the word I'm looking for? Interface boards. These are interface boards. Okay, and you're going to have 4 of these, and for the most part, they're all going to be built the same way. Okay, as far as this amount of building goes, these are all identical. So I'm going to just put those away over here, and we're going to show one, and we're going to bring it up close. Okay, so for starters, what I've done, first of all, I guess I'll start here. So again, a review from the past tutorial, looking at the knobs facing you. This is pin 1, this is pin 2, this is pin 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we have 8 of them. So I've plugged in the first one so that the pin 1 is in the very first row. And then, as you can tell, let's see if I can tilt that up just right. Very difficult to do this. There's 3 holes. There's 3 holes in between each one. 3 empty holes. Okay. And so you might want to make a note of that. That gets all 8 fit onto the board with a couple of holes left over at the end, which is neither here nor there. Okay. Now, we're going to spin this board around. After you've got those all in, so now we're looking at it from the opposite direction. So this is pin 3, pin 2, pin 1 of the potentiometer. Each pin 1 Get that in there. Each pin 1 and 2 for each potentiometer has a jumper in between that connects both of them, the 1 and the 2. Okay, so I want you to do that next. Make some little jumpers. Pins 1 and 2 each get jumped together, as you can see. Okay, you can stop and pause this at any time. So once you've done that, now we're going to insert diodes. In the first tutorial I did, I misnamed these. These are 1N4148 diodes. Okay, and we're going to plug one of these into pin 1 of each potentiometer with the cathode, the black band, pointing away from the potentiometer, and that's going to go across the board, this little divide here. It's going to go across that divide. Okay, so each pin 1, plug in a 1N4148 diode, and just put it across there, just like that. You can pause the video if you need to. Okay, the next thing that we do, we've got 8 corresponding LEDs. I use red LEDs because they're the lowest power color LEDs, and 4017s really don't put out a lot of voltage. A lot of people will plug in blue LEDs, and that's really putting a strain on your 4017. It'll work, but will it work for, you know, however long you need it to? So I'm going to use red here just to put that lower strain on that. Okay, so then we've got, looking again at the potentiometer, pin 1, 2, 3. I put a wire jumper from pin 3 going across the divide to this side. And to each of those orange LEDs, I've got each of those wires, I've got a anode, which is the longer lead of the LED again. That's plugged into that orange wire. Okay. Each of these orange wires gets plugged into the anode or positive lead of your LED. I'll just put that back in. And you can pause the video to do that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is each of these black bands, which all point away from here, each of them gets tied together. Okay, each cathode gets daisy chained together. I've used blue wires here to do that. Okay, so cathode, blue wire, to cathode, blue wire, and then I had to offset, another blue wire, so that also goes cathode to cathode. Again, blue wire cathode to cathode, blue wire cathode to cathode, and so on until you get all 8. You can pause the video here. Now, the cathode of the LEDs, also, each cathode gets daisy chained together, cathode to cathode to cathode. So I've used a green wire here, cathode to cathode, green wire. Another one back here from cathode to this cathode. A green wire from here, cathode to cathode, and so on. You can pause the video. Now, you're going to do that 4 times. Okay, and it takes a while. It'll take you a while, and that's all right. You don't have to do this all in one day, that's for sure. Just do it as you have time, or maybe you can do it all at once. And you do them all just like that. Okay, so I've shown you how to plug in the ICs, where the LEDs plug in. You've got a 100K potentiometer here. All 32 of these potentiometers and this one here, the 33rd potentiometer, they're all 100K potentiometers. So no need to have all kinds of crazy parts. This LED here is going to be the clock pulse for this 555 timer. This LED here is going to serve as the power indicator. When you're using electronics and you've got a board set up and you've got some parts on it and whatnot, it's really good to add on there a LED that serves only to show that the power is on. This is important because sometimes that's, well, usually I will say, when you make a mistake, that it's usually the simplest thing that you're most likely to overlook. And oftentimes that's the power. So make sure your power is connected. Have an LED indicator that turns on when you plug that in, so that, there we go. So that you can see that, yeah, you've got power plugged into it. And we're gonna add other jumpers going across the board too, to make sure that this positive is connected to that positive, this negative is connected to that positive, and so it's all good all the way across. And there'll be other jumpers as well. Also, as I mentioned, so you've got all the diode cathodes connected together on each of these 4 boards. We're also going to jump over to the cathode on the next board, which of course is already connected to the other ones. Okay, so that these 4 boards, they will all have connected cathodes of the diodes. And we'll also run a jumper from the LED cathodes to each board to jumper those out all across. I'm mentioning that now, even though it's early in the game, because that's really important. You're gonna want everything to work all the way across. So just remember, diode cathodes tied together, LED cathodes tied together, each board LED cathode to LED cathode, each board diode cathode to diode cathode, and so on. So you'll have a couple of jumpers going to each of these. And I'm going to call this part 1, I believe. This is plenty to get you started, and in the next session, we're going to start wiring up our board, all the ICs, get them properly hooked up so that they can cascade, which means this one will count, then this one will count, then this one will count, then this one will count. And the 4018 handles making the connections between the 4 4017s that enable them to be cascaded properly. And then finally we have the 555 on this end, which is going to serve as our audio oscillator. All right. And you'll need a speaker. Any speaker will do. I found this one on Amazon. I like red. All right, so that's about it for now. Part 1 is done, and I will see you very soon for part 2.